Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady, America's #1 small business expert. And I am so excited to welcome you to another episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. I have 3 amazing guests today. We're first going to be talking about how to lead your team during challenging times like what we're in right now. We're also going to be talking with an expert who's going to help us make sales less sleazy. And if you're one of those people like me that's always trying to figure out sales tax and trying to stay on the right side of the law, we have an expert here who's going to break down everything we need to know about sales taxes. Now, if our current economy is stressing you outright, you're in the right place. One of my guests has suggestions for weathering the storm and what we need to be thinking about going forward. And if you've been thinking about how to boost your sales, I have the author of a brand new book here who's going to give you some tools and techniques that are going to help you do a lot better with your sales conversations. And if you're looking for answers about how to handle sales taxes in your business, we got answers. My experts are here today, and they are going to give you everything you need for all of your long-term business success strategies. Now, here on the Small Biz Chat podcast, we talk about how to start and grow a successful small business. We give it to you from different angles, and it is sage advice that you would have to pay lots of money for otherwise. The way we look at the Small Biz Chat podcast is that we are a peer-to-peer mentoring program. Now, the mission of Small Biz Chat is to end small business failure, and that is always our focus. The Small Biz Chat live broadcast can be seen on my YouTube channel or on my Small Biz Lady Facebook page. Please go there and watch us and subscribe and share the stream. We want lots of people to get the information about all of my experts today. Now, it's time for me to introduce my guest. My first guest is Mr. Nick Ron. He is CEO of Home Buyers of America. Our next guest is Carole Mahoney, author of the brand new book, Buyer First. And we're going to be talking with a tax expert, Chanel Christoff Davis, and she's going to be giving us all the lowdown on sales taxes. I am excited to talk with all of them. Now it's time for me to introduce my very first guest, Nick Ron. He is the founder and CEO of House Buyers of America. He is an industry veteran with over 20 years of experience as a real estate investor. He founded the Home Buyers of America in 2001, selling homes through his hybrid real estate model that balances technology with human on-the-ground expertise. Nick took the Home Buyers of Association from $0 to $50 million within his first 3 years of business operations. Nick is an Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year award winner and has been featured in USA Today and the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. News and World Report, to name a few. For more information, go to homebuyerSofAmerica.com. Nick, welcome.
Good to be here, Melinda.
So tell us, how did you get started in business? Because you still look kind of young for somebody that's grown a $50 million business. So did you start when you were 12? Tell me what's going on. How did you start your business?
Appreciate that. Well, if you think I look young now, I looked a lot younger 22 years ago. So I was 26 years old. I started shortly after college, about 3 years after college. But, started really my entrepreneurial days started when I was growing up. We had to hustle, me and my 3 brothers and sister. We grew up really poor. My mom was on welfare. And so we had to hustle just to buy things that we wanted. So we were collecting cans, delivering newspapers, landscaping. So we just learned the grind early on and learned to chase after things we wanted because nothing was handed to us. Coming out of college, I had a great job selling software east of the Mississippi. I was traveling a lot, doing a lot of business development, learned a lot about marketing, technology. Then I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that lit the spark in me for real estate. I knew nothing about real estate, didn't even own a house, but I said, this sounds exciting. Sounds like a great way to make money and to build wealth. And basically this book teaches you how to make money work for you rather than you work for money. And so I love the whole concept of passive income and wealth creation. So my initial goal was to buy about 100 rental properties over like a 10, 15-year period and eventually retire off of that, and had no intention of doing what we do today. And so I started when I was 26 years old, and I was working full time, and I'd get home around 5 o'clock and do my real estate business from 5 to 9 and did that nights and weekends. We bought 26 houses our first year. And I said, well, I started making more money part-time than full-time. And so I said, it's time to quit my job. So I did that in September of that year. And next year, we bought 100 houses. Third year, bought 250 houses and did over 50 million in annual revenue. And so very fast growth rate, but started from just renting houses. And then I quickly shifted to the buy, fix, sell model, just flipping houses. Been doing that ever since.
So your business grew very fast. What were your biggest challenges as your business was growing?
Well, just inexperience. I was young. I started hiring people early on. In fact, my first 2 employees worked at the basement of my house. No joke. And we finally got some office space. But I was hiring people literally twice my age, and I lacked confidence. I didn't know how to manage people older than me. And so I had to get over that. I trusted some people too much, some not enough. And I had to learn how to hire people right. So we made a lot of bad hiring decisions, made a lot of management mistakes. So that was probably my biggest one. I also knew nothing about real estate, so I had to learn that over time. But I did find that my lack of real estate experience helped me, because we could look at the industry with fresh eyes. And so we were constantly trying new things rather than trying the old tried and proven ways in the real estate industry. And back then when we started, although, doing what we do now is pretty popular and they have HGTV, but back in 2001, you could probably count on one hand the number of people who were buying houses at scale. And so we had to figure everything out. There was no textbook. There was no seminar you could go to learn how to do this at scale like we were doing. So those are some of my biggest challenges.
So when you were, you said you bought 26 houses the first year, 100 houses the second year, 250 houses the third year. Did you do that with your money, or did you do that with other people's money? How did you finance all of this growth that you had in your business?
Good question. We did some owner financing, some hard money lending, and I came into the business, from a very successful career in business development. So took some of my own cash, put it in the business, and I was always, reinvesting money into the business. But yeah, there's no way I could have bought 26 houses with my piggy bank. That wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I completely get that. So right now, the real estate business is kind of interesting right now with interest rates going up every 5 minutes. How do you reassure your team when things start getting a little sketchy?
Well, thankfully for us, we went through 2008, and this is nothing compared to that. So we've been pretty fortunate. We've actually been growing quite a bit during the downturn in the real estate market the last year. And so while everyone else is retrenching, we've been growing. However, back in 2008, I can tell you things were not that great. The first year during that transition, and we learned early on, just have to over communicate to your team, let them know what's going on. And people aren't dumb. They read the headlines. They know that everyone's struggling, not just you. What's more challenging is when you're struggling and no one else is. That's a hard sell to your team. But when they see the whole industry is struggling, and you're communicating with them frequently what you're doing to get through these difficult times and what you need from them to help you get through it, that makes things a lot easier. People have buy-in and they know that there's a vision, there's a direction, there's a game plan. It's when you don't say anything and you're not communicating with them what's going on and how you're going to fix it. That's when people start to get nervous.
So you talked earlier about how you had some staffing issues kind of early on. How did you get over that? Did you hire an HR person? Like, how did you get to the point where you started making good hires?
Yeah, I've always been big on reading a lot, getting a lot of advice, hiring consultants, and so just talking to a lot of people. I had an HR consultants. I've had hired an HR manager, and just constantly tweaking the formula. And I just think that's so important for any entrepreneur. You just you're always trying to find a better mousetrap, a better way to do things. And so we developed, job descriptions and, questions for each position, and really systematized our process. So that way it was a little more rigorous, and we learned what we were looking for, what kind of skills we were looking for, what kind of attitude, what kind of culture fit. And so initially, if I met someone who sounded good in the interview, I was ready to hire them right away. And I learned, that there are a lot of people who are very good at interviewing, very slick in the interview process, but they're not very good at doing the actual work. And so I had to learn the hard way and how to ask the tough questions and be a little skeptical, if you will, in not just listening what they're saying, but also try to dig a little deeper in their background and trying to find out, what were their past results. I learned the hard way, the past performance is the best predictor of future performance. So just asking the questions and verifying and validating, and we do assessment testing now. So we have a pretty rigorous process, and we've been able to make some fantastic hires over the years after we figured that out.
Now, is there a particular category of hire that you found the toughest? Was it the guys that were fixing the floors? Was it the salespeople? Like, who was the toughest for you to hire?
I would say we never had a tough time hiring. You always have to be patient and wait for the right person. But I think during COVID was just brutal because there were very few people out in the marketplace in the real estate sector. Construction, real estate was booming. Everyone knows what's happened the last few years in the business. So trying to find good project managers, good purchasing managers, those kind of folks was challenging. Salespeople was not as challenging, and some of the operational people, but construction and purchasing was tough. So you just had to be that much better.
So when you really started to grow, how did you engage your team around feedback? As a young CEO, I'm imagining that some of the people that were older than you might have had some good ideas to share with you. Like, how receptive were you of that at that time versus how receptive you are to something like that now?
Yeah, I was always pretty receptive. I think you have to be pretty humble as a CEO, even if you've been doing that. I'm 22 years into this, and I'll listen to anyone on my team, even the younger staff members. They have ideas, they've had experiences that I don't have. So you just have to ask, and you have to genuinely show that you want their opinion. And I always tell people, just be brutally honest. If I know maybe they're going to tell me something I don't want to hear, I'll tell them, just give it to me. I'm ready for it, and I've got thick skin. And I think if you're honest with them about that, and if you're really eager to hear the truth, they'll tell you. So I just ask them to do one-on-ones. Sometimes I'll take them out to breakfast. I've done that in the past. And one of my favorite questions is, if you were CEO, what would you do differently? And it really gets them thinking, and they'll pause and they'll give me some good feedback. Even at one point hired an executive coach, and he would engage with my staff, and sometimes he could hear things that I wouldn't. And so I was able to get feedback that way. And we have all hands meetings, and we'll do breakout sessions where the team without a manager will discuss certain issues or challenges and come up with ideas and present it to management. So we've done that as well. And so we've always tried to find creative ways to get feedback from people.
Good stuff. Well, when we come right back on the Small Biz Chat podcast, we're going to talk more with my guest, Nick Ron, about how he's grown his business and how you can do the same. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back. Hi there. Here's today's boss tip. If you're trying to figure out pricing on a contract, did you know that you could actually go to Google and hit training company pricing and see what Google has for you? You'd be amazed how much information there is out on the internet. And think about putting .pdf and .edu. That might get you there faster too. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, your host, and I'm here with my guest, Nick Ron from the Home Buyers of America. And Ron, I'm really interested to ask you, what are the three biggest mistakes you think that small business owners make?
Sure. I see a lot of times small business owners aren't building systems and processes. A lot of times the visionary runs at the seat of their pants. They're ideas people, and they have an idea a minute. But putting systems and processes and the boring details of building the business, they don't want to get involved with. So that's big. I think the second thing is you have to measure results. You have to track everything. So you got to track and see what's working. Every employee of your company should have a number. What are they being measured on? What's their performance metric? So you need to have a scorecard where you can see the business at a snapshot and see how's the business doing. Be able to predict issues down the line rather than waiting for the problem to happen and then trying to reactively correct it. Hiring people, I see a lot of mistakes with that. People. Just hiring the wrong people, maybe even hiring friends and family. That's always a big challenge. It's tough to manage your buddy. I tell people all the time, don't hire somebody you can't fire. It's bad for business and bad for you. I'm a big proponent. Give them a check, not a job. Don't do it. Please don't do it. I co-sign you with the hiring 100%. Yeah, those are the big ones I see over and over. If you get those three things right, I mean, people are the most important part of your business. It's your greatest asset. It really is. It's not just a cliche, but if you get the right people, 90% of your problems will be solved if you've got 8 players on your team. They'll figure out how to solve the problems, and they'll be working to really to improve their performance and to better the company. It's just in their nature. So if you hire the right people, that's 90% of it.
How important is it to share to really celebrate big and small wins?
Well, it's huge. It's like wind in the sails of your team. And so we're always looking to share successes. It's part of our all hands meeting that we have every month, and just part of a day-to-day. People are working hard and they want to know that what they're doing matters and it's making a difference. And so tying that success back to their individual role and what they've done recently and being specific. Hey, here's what you did and here's why we're able to sell this house for more money or do this or do that. That's really important. And so really driving it down to the individual as well as the team and giving credit for the success is huge.
All right, last question. What is the best business advice you've ever gotten?
Best business advice I've ever gotten. I would say be slow to hire, quick to fire. Be slow to hire and quick to fire. I've learned, initially I'd mentioned earlier, take your time hiring people. Don't rush it. Sometimes it'll take 6 months to hire someone. So be patient, be picky, trust your gut. If something tells you this person might not be the right fit, even though their resume looks perfect, just wait. You might lose that person by waiting, but trust your gut. And if someone's not working out, there are some things people can fix. You can fix skills. You can fix things that are teachable. That people can learn. They're teachable, but you can't fix people's attitudes. If mom and dad couldn't fix that, I can't fix that. You can't fix people's work ethic. You can't fix character. Someone's not honest. Like I said, if mom and dad couldn't fix that one, I'm not going to be able to fix that. So
yeah, integrity is a little hard to teach. You got to get that when you're little, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Nick. I've really enjoyed learning more about you and your business. And hang tight, we're going to bring you back in a little bit for a little panel. But I have really enjoyed learning about your story, and your advice was very helpful. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with a sales expert about how you should be putting your buyers first. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you ready to become a boss? Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady. Click the button below and take my free boss quiz. This assessment will help you learn your entrepreneur type and find the right business model for you. Get this information about the number one asset in your business. Yeah, that's you. All right, welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. We hope you're watching on my Small Biz Lady fan page on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us if there's a topic you want us to discuss on the show. I'm sure I know an expert who can give us the deets on it. And don't forget to listen to the Small Biz Chat podcast, which comes out every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you like to listen to audio in your ear. So I am back with my guest. Her name is Carole Mahoney. Carole is the author of Buyer First, Grow Your Business with Collaborative Selling. Carole is changing the way the entire sales industry sees itself and how buyers see it too. She's been called the sales therapist by Harvard Business School, where she coaches sales for their entrepreneurial MBA program. She's also the president of AAISP Boston and has been named a top sales influencer by LinkedIn and Sales Hacker and voted a top sales coach by Ambition. With the heart of a teacher and the spirit of a coach, she is ready to share how you can unlock sales success that you never thought possible. For more information, go to Carole with an Mahoney.com. Carole, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, gosh, I am so happy that you are here. You gave me an early version of Buyer First. And so I'm so excited that it's finally out because I really, really loved your book. So now, Carole, let's just start at the beginning. How did you become an entrepreneur?
I think it was in my DNA. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, right? My grandfather had his own welding business and as well as a sporting goods store. My mother had her own painting business. My father was an artist and made all of, like, in the 70s, all the murals that you would see on the hippie VW van buses. Like, those were the kinds of things that he did. And so, working a 9-to-5 job in my family was a foreign concept. And so when I went to college and then worked a 9-to-5 job, they were like, what are you doing? But my plan was to always start my own business. And when 2007 crashed and I got laid off, my 5-year plan to open my business became a 6-month plan. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, I think 07, 08 changed a lot of people's lives. And my prayer is that we don't go back to that because that was a super ugly time. Now, let's talk about sales.
Yeah.
Is sales really about your mindset? Is like, if your mindset's bad, you are not going to get results. Is that pretty much what you teach?
Pretty much. The research and the psychology behind it is called the theory of reasoned action, or the theory of planned behavior. And basically what it says is you can know exactly the right words to say and the right process and techniques. But if you get in the moment in a conversation with your buyer and you find yourself bailing out of those tough conversations or asking those tough questions, it's because your beliefs and mindsets are not supporting you in that action. And that's what the theory of reasoned action says, is that it is your attitudes towards a task that will dictate how you will perform that task if you do it at all. And so how we think about things absolutely becomes the behaviors that we have, and the behaviors that we have lead to the results that we get.
I completely get that. Well, has the human aspect of sales been lost? Because I feel like sometimes you deal with salespeople and they are so aggressive, or like the second I look at some information on a website, somebody is calling my phone and it's like, dude, wait a minute. I was just trying to get some information to decide if I wanted to even talk to you. And they don't even give you a chance to decide that because they're all over you. And I know that the sales enablement technology enables people to do that, but is that really converting? Because it turns me off entirely.
And you're absolutely right. It is not working. If you look at the studies from LinkedIn and their state of sales report, as well as countless other research studies, buyers are completely turned off by the way salespeople act. We don't like the pushy, slimy, sleazy sales tactics. If you've read Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human, 7 out of 10 of us see sales as that used car salesman that we've all despise having to deal with. And the sad thing is you can still go onto a car lot and that's the exact same salesperson that's there. And that's what really forms our mindsets about what sales is all about. So when we go into business for ourselves and we think I have to do sales, we're like, I ain't doing that. I ain't going to be that. But it still creeps in. And so we try the automated email sequences. We try the, spamming everybody that we know on LinkedIn, anything that we can do to try and get more customers and clients. And we don't even realize that we're doing the same behaviors that we despise in other people. And so we've lost that human aspect. And the thing of it is this: sales, the definition of sales is an exchange of value. Sales isn't something that we do to other people. I'm going to sell you on this. Like, when has anyone ever wanted to say that statement? But sales is really something that we do with other people. It's an exchange. It's a collaboration. It's a conversation between two human beings, which, the conversations that most salespeople have is they do all of the talking, tell you how wonderful they are, how the competitor is horrible and why you should buy their stuff right now, or you're going to miss out on blah, 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 blah. And it's just not how we make decisions as humans. It's not how we like to interact as humans. And the whole idea of technology today is to hope to make a human connection faster and easier to happen. And instead, it's actually made us further apart.
Well, what do buyers value?
This is my favorite question, because we think that buyers value things like huge return on investment and low costs and savings and things like that, which are all important part of the decision-making process. But what buyers really value, if you've read Deb Calvert's book, To Stop Selling and Stop Leading, they interviewed 530 B2B business buyers to find out what are the kinds of behaviors that buyers actually prefer in salespeople. And they prefer to be collaborated with. They prefer to be challenged, to think about their problems and the options to solve those problems in a different way. And they want people that are going to collaborate with them to come up with new solutions. These are the things that buyers value. And unfortunately, it's the exact opposite of what most salespeople do. We feel we need to pitch, we need to give our value proposition, we need to give our elevator pitch and convince you of why you should do this thing. But if you've heard of the IKEA effect, or even IKEA, it's that furniture store, you put together all of the stuff yourself. There was a Harvard study that was done to find out, do people place more value in things that they've actually helped to co-create? And what they found is that people are willing to pay quite a bit more for things that they've put together themselves versus something that's been put together for them. So when we collaborate with our buyers in our conversations, we're adding more value to the conversations and they see more value in the solutions as a result.
I love it. I love it. That is really, really good advice. So tell me about your book, Buyer First.
So Buyer First is a book that I wrote. It's actually the book that I wish that I had when I first started my business in 2007. I had actually started a marketing agency because I despised the idea of sales so much that I thought the internet was going to make it easy for me to help businesses to grow by making salespeople obsolete. But what I found was that we still need human beings to help us feel confident and comfortable making especially big decisions and making big changes. And so what I also found was happening is that my clients in my marketing agency were getting a ton of leads from their website, but they weren't closing any sales, which means they weren't actually growing. And I started to wonder why that is and what is happening in those sales conversations that's causing buyers to opt out, even though they've raised their hands for help. And that's what Buyer First is really all about. It's for the small business owner, the entrepreneur, or the salesperson in a company who's tried everything, every tip, every trick, every hack. You see these books behind me, every sales process known to man, but don't understand why the things that seem to work for everyone else in these books doesn't seem to work for them. And what they don't realize, it's their mindsets that are getting in the way of sales. And there's very specific mindsets that are getting in the way of executing on the behaviors that buyers value most, which is that collaboration. And so in the book, we talk about what are those mindsets? How do they impact us? But more importantly, how do we change them? And then what are the behaviors that we need to adapt to make our buyers feel understood, heard, and at the same time, build our businesses together.
I think that is such a valuable thing that I don't know if everyone's thinking about that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But tell me, what are the most common misconceptions that you think business owners have about sales?
There's so many of them. But one of the biggest ones that I encounter is that business owners believe that people need to like me in order to buy from me. It's a common misconception. We hear it all the time. If people don't like you, they're not going to want to buy from you. And what that really means is that you can't be a jerk to someone and expect that they're going to want to do business with you. Of course, you need to be a human being and have tact and grace. But it goes over to a bad side when people are afraid to challenge their buyers in the questions that they ask, or they're worried about how something is going to impact me. They're worried about how am I going to look in this conversation? Do they think that I'm smart enough for them to be able to buy from me? And because we're so wrapped up in ourselves and our products and our services and what are they going to think of me, that we end up becoming the yes person, right? The person that says yes to everything. Oh, yes, of course I can do that. Yeah, I can do that too. And I can do that. And I can do it all for less. And we end up spreading ourselves too thin. But also what we're doing is it's making it hard for our buyers to trust us. Because how many people have ever trusted the person that says yes to everything? The yes man and woman? We don't trust that person because we don't know what they stand for. They never say no to anything. They don't have any boundaries. And so when you think in sales that people need to like you in order to buy from you, be careful, because that can get in your way of actually having a collaborative conversation with your buyer that gets them to think differently about something.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. So what do you think is the number one thing that business owners can do today to have better sales conversations?
Stop making it about you. I have these T-shirts that I wear a lot. They're black and white, and the letters "not about you" are printed upside down on the T-shirt so that the person looking down and wearing it can be reminded it's not about you. It's about the other person. It's about their thoughts, their wants, what they think is going on, what's worked, what hasn't worked for them, because people like to talk about the things that they think. So when we make it not about us, there's another aspect to this whole need for approval and talking all about ourselves all the time, is that when we talk about ourselves, there was a study done at Harvard in 2012. Neuroscientists found that when we talk about ourselves, that we get dopamine flooding through our brains. And what that is it creates pleasure for us. We love talking about ourselves so much that the participants in the study were offered money to stop talking about themselves, but ignored the money and kept talking about themselves. Like you couldn't pay them enough to shut up. Exactly. And so the thing of it is that part of our brain where the dopamine is released is the part of our brain where we also form relationships, where we form bonds and where we form trust. So if we can get our buyers to talk more about themselves than we talk about ourselves, that's how we start to build trust with them. That's how we start to collaborate with them. And so if you can remember as a salesperson, as a business owner who has to sell yourself, which is even more difficult to do, the more you can make it about the other person and less about you, the better the conversation will go.
I love it. I love it. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Carole Mahoney about how to boost your sales. This is the SmallBizChat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you thinking about starting your dream business this summer? Well, listen, I'm going to be teaching my Become Your Own Boss course starting June 20th. It is going to be live every week for 10 weeks. And I'm going to give you what you need to make a successful transition from having a job to starting a business. So don't do this alone. Let me walk you through my proven system to start your dream business. All right, head over to smallbizladyuniversity.com and get all the details. Classes start June 20th. Welcome back, everybody, to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I'm so excited to be here today with Carole Mahoney. She is talking to us about her new book, Buyer First. All right, Carole, I got a big question for you. How do you know when it's the right time to hire a salesperson?
This is a big question because a lot of business owners try to hire a salesperson so that they don't have to do the sales part themselves because they don't like the idea of doing sales. And the reason that if you're hiring a salesperson because you don't want to do sales yourself, and that is the only reason, it is not a good reason. There's a couple of reasons why. One, mindsets are contagious. How you think about sales, what your beliefs are around sales are going to be contagious to the rest of your team. Because if you have a negative mindset towards sales, their team is 355% more likely to hold those same beliefs. And that's going to undermine their success without you even knowing it. But if you can adopt positive beliefs about sales, then that's going to impact your team in a positive way at 1,000%. And those teams will perform more likely. So first, make sure your head's right about sales before you think about hiring a salesperson for that. And then the second thing to consider when you're thinking about hiring a salesperson is what kind of environment are they going to come into? What kind of onboarding can you supply? And what kind of support and development can you give them? And at the same time, what skills do they need to have to be successful in this role? Have they sold at these price points before? Are they familiar with this particular buyer? Are they comfortable in the type of environment that they're going to go into? And then also consider, how are they going to get business? Are you going to be sending leads to them? Do they need to develop their own leads? These are things to take into consideration as to how and who you're going to hire. Also think about the volume in your business now. If you're selling in your business now and you're at a point where you can't grow and scale because there's no more hours left in the day, that's the time to think about hiring a salesperson. And I would hire a salesperson before you hire a delivery person, because sales is something you can teach relatively quickly to people who have the right attitudes and mindsets about it.
I love it. All right, last question. How do you get over your misconception of sales? If you're just like, oh, sales is sleazy, slimy, how do you get over that?
So first is to repeat this mantra to yourself. Sales is not something I do to other people. It is something that I do with them. Just as you would have a conversation with anyone about any situation that they're having, there's a back and forth that goes there. So it is less about having the exact right pitch and product, which is what a lot of people think sales is all about. And it is more about being comfortable, having a conversation, and asking tough and thought-provoking questions. Some of the other things that you can do to help you get more comfortable in sales, one of the things I would say is build up your own self-confidence by acknowledging the things that you've done well in the past to build your confidence to do new things in the future, as well as making that all about them. Because when we make sales all about us and what we need to do and what we want from other people, it makes sales difficult. But when we make sales all about others, the buyer first, then it's no longer about us. It's not about rejection. It's not about wondering what they think about us, because it really doesn't have anything to do with us. Sales becomes pushy, slimy, and sleazy when we make it all about ourselves.
I agree. And what is the best business advice you've ever been given?
The best business advice I got when I first started my business was that you cannot manage time. You can only prioritize it. That's like trying to take sand and hold on to it for a long period of time in the wind. It just doesn't happen. We all get the same 24 hours in the day. It's what you do with those hours and how you prioritize those things to align with your goals. That's how you start to get progress and success.
I love it. Carole Mahoney, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see the final version of your book, Buyer First, and hang out with us. We're going to bring you back in a few. But next, when we come back, we're going to be talking with a sales expert who's going to, a tax expert who's going to help us with what we all need to know about sales taxes. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I want to welcome you to Small Biz Lady University. Our mission here is to end small business failure. So all of the courses here are about two things: how to become your own boss or how to make money online. So that's what we do here. So whether you want to learn about email marketing and sales funnels, or you're ready to get started with social media selling, or if you're really just getting started with e-commerce, you might want to jump into our How to Sell and Market Online course. Either way, if you want to learn how to become your own boss and do it well, I have everything you need here at smallbizladyuniversity.com. If you have any questions or have any technical problems getting signed up, just email us at support@melindaemerson.com. Take care. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. Now it's time to talk about the money. Not the money you make, but the money that you might owe to your state. My next guest is Chanel Christoff Davis, and she is going to be talking to us about what we need to know about sales taxes. Now, this isn't sexy, but it is absolutely necessary, because more and more small businesses are getting in trouble because they don't understand what their obligation is to their state. So let me formally introduce Chanel. She is a tax expert with over 20 years of experience in business operations. Chanel is the founding partner and CEO of Davis and Harmon LLC, an award-winning firm of sales tax experts known as DDH. Established in 2001, DDH is the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the nation. DDH services corporations by delivering innovative tax solutions that return money to their clients' bottom line. Ms. Davis has so much experience in managing client relations and the day-to-day management decisions of her firm. For more information, go to ddhtax.com. Chanel, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm always happy to talk about taxes.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to know what made you become an accountant? And then how did you turn that into an entrepreneurial venture?
It's a really good story. So I was the kid that was always the super nerdy math person. I was always in some type of a math program, advanced math classes, mathletes. I was that kid. I just love numbers from day one. I love relationships of numbers, how they operate and they relate to each other. I was born this way. Numbers make sense to me. And it's funny because growing up, I always excelled in math. But then in high school, you kind of lose that knowledge and you kind of focus on other things. And then when I went to college, I majored in business. I was in the College of Business, took my first intro to accounting class and made 100 on every test out the gate. And then I was like, oh, that's right. I'm good. This is a thing. So that's how it happened.
So how did you end up starting your firm?
So, I always had a passion for entrepreneurship and leadership. Even in college, I started the student chapter of the National Association of Black Accountants on my college campus. So I was always seeking opportunities to flex my leadership muscles. So when I graduated from college, I went to Price Waterhouse, which became PricewaterhouseCoopers, their Big Four accounting firm and consulting practice. And my goal then was to be the first African-American partner in the Dallas office. That didn't happen. However, I did start my own firm and became a partner. So we just ventured, my founding partner and I, we ventured towards sales tax and, basically responded to an RFP for consultants. And we won the first project and never looked back.
Love it. Love it. So that's how you sort of niched into sales taxes, was from an RFP, somebody said?
So yeah, it was from a government for the state of Texas. It was an RFP, and we put together our first proposal and submitted our qualifications, and we won it.
Love it. So tell me, what are the laws on sales taxes? I mean, sales taxes are one of those things that do you charge? Do you not charge? Does it depend on what you sell? Does it depend on how much the thing is that you sell? Because, for example, there is no sales tax on clothes in Pennsylvania unless you buy something luxury. You buy something over $350, $400, you will pay taxes on it. Or you buy a jacket or, like a leather jacket or something like that that's expensive, you will pay taxes on it. And they call that a luxury tax. And I'm like, is that random? Is it like certain stores get to charge that? Like, what is all of that?
So let me break it down very simply. So in the United States, because we like to make things complicated, there are 50 states in the union. However, there are 45 states that have an enumerated sales tax on the books. So these are on the state's constitution, is written into the laws of the state. So depending on what state you're based in or you're operating in, your state may or may not have a sales tax law. So Alaska, New Hampshire, Oregon, I'm trying to think of all of them. There's
Delaware.
They don't have a enumerated state sales tax law. But District of Columbia does. Alaska doesn't have a state sales tax law, but the local municipalities and counties all have their own sales tax laws. So every county has their own. So it gets even more complicated and layer as we get deeper into it. But what you need to know as a business owner is it's not about where you're located, it's where you're actually doing business. So for example, if I'm in the state of Texas, but my customers are in California, I may have a responsibility to California. So it's all based on benefit location. So Pennsylvania, where you are, Philadelphia, they don't tax clothing, but in Texas we do. Every state has different laws on the books. It's all based on the state's legislature and what they deem a priority. But what's consistent is if you are operating in states where sales tax is a law, states take it very seriously. They use the revenue from those collections to fund everything in the state: education, infrastructure, bridges and roads are built with sales tax money. Medicaid, all that is used. The money they collect is used to fund the state's business. So they take it very seriously and they're very aggressive.
So is it different whether you sell things that are physical products versus electronic products, like on the internet?
Great question. So that's also based on the state and where you're selling. So there are states enumerated sales tax on physical goods, and that's what we understand, right? If you buy a widget, you're going to most likely have to pay sales tax on it. There are rare exceptions, like you said, clothing in your state is not taxable, but in many states it is. So, but we understand that, okay, if I buy something tangible, something that I can touch or feel, it's most likely going to have a sales tax associated. However, I'm going to stack on top of that, some states tax services. So in my state, landscaping services is taxable. Janitorial services is taxable. If you build websites in the state of Texas, that is taxable. So just because you have a service, don't fall into the thought process that I don't have to charge sales tax. I can give you one that you guys interact with all the time. QuickBooks is a taxable service. Dropbox is a taxable service. Netflix is a taxable service. So if you're streaming movies, it's taxable in many, many, many states.
Wow. So how do you determine, I guess, is it really that you just really need to be talking to your accountant about what you should be doing?
Well, that's a great question too. So many CPAs don't specialize in this expertise. CPAs represent the 99% of what the public thinks about when you think about a tax advisor. You think about a CPA, a person that can help you file your income taxes. That is different. We are the unicorn. We're the 1%. We don't operate at all where income tax is concerned. We only focus on transaction tax, meaning if you have a transaction and you're transacting business in the state, that falls under the realm of sales tax, sales and use tax. Use tax is different from sales tax. Sales tax is I'm selling something, I have to charge you sales tax on it. Use tax is the business inputs I use or the transactions that I conduct within my business. I'm using these items to run my business. So I'm buying computers, I'm buying desks, I'm buying whatever I need to use to run my business. That's considered a use tax. So there's sales tax and use tax. So those are different, but that's totally different from federal income tax, which is where CPAs reside. We are sales tax advisors. It's a totally different set of laws.
Wow, I think you just made my head hurt with all of that. So help me understand, what are some basic rules, like just some basic rules of thumb that people just need to keep in mind?
So keep in mind one or two things. If you're operating in any state in the union, but your business is transacting business in multiple states, you should be aware of what you're doing, how you're showing up in those states, and you can cause or trigger a taxable transaction a number of ways. One category is physical presence, meaning I'm physically located in the state. I have a brick and mortar, I have a distribution center. I may be sending my trucks into a state to deliver goods and services. I may be traveling back and forth into that state to do trade shows, right? I'm physically visiting a state to drum up business and to sell. That's physical presence. That can trigger sales tax. Then there's a separate category called economic nexus. Economic nexus means that I may not be physically going into the state. However, I'm shipping goods into that state, or I'm streaming via the net, I don't want to keep naming names, but I may be streaming movies and music in that state. So I'm not physically there, but I'm selling into that state. Mm-hmm. So the way the state sees it is, if you are deriving revenue from my citizens, you may have a responsibility. You don't have to ever show up. You don't have to ever cross the state line. But if you are actually deriving revenue from my citizens, you may have responsibility to collect sales tax in my state. So that is very tricky, because if you operate in Oregon, which does not have a sales tax, you may be based there physically, but I'm selling next door to another state that has a sales tax. You probably owe sales tax to the neighboring state. So you have to be aware of what you're doing and where you're doing it. So do an analysis, look at your revenue generated by state, and then determine whether or not you need help.
Now, is this a huge issue for small businesses? Like, are small businesses getting in trouble with state legislatures around this?
It's a huge issue. This is a recent Supreme Court case in 2018. It was Wayfair versus South Dakota that made internet sales transactions taxable. Before 2018, you didn't have to worry about, economic nexus. It wasn't an issue. But the Supreme Court agreed with South Dakota, and that changed the whole entire landscape. So now, yes, you can be an Amazon seller. You could be doing fulfillment by Amazon. You could be a small business, but you're actually transacting business all over the country via Amazon. You have to be aware of how much revenue you're generating in every state. And there are triggers. Some states, it could be $100,000 in sales that tips you over. Some states, it could be $50,000 in sales that tips you over. Some states is $0, but how many transactions? 200 transactions tips you over. So it varies by state, but you need to be, I guess, aware that this is even a concern, because I like to tell potential clients that ignorance is not a defense. If you ever get caught by a state taxing authority, they don't care that you didn't know. They don't care. What they want to say, what they're going to tell you is you should have known.
Mm. All right, Chanel, what is the best business advice you have ever been given?
I think the best business advice I wish I had been given, but I never was given, was to not isolate myself as an entrepreneur, that I should build community early. And I didn't do that. I've been in business for 22 years. And I wish that I would have joined things like Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses. It didn't exist then, but the point I'm trying to make is chambers of commerce, whatever it is, find other like-minded people like yourself. Don't isolate yourself, because we can be very siloed as entrepreneurs. And when you leave outside of your office and look around, there's a wealth of knowledge around you, but you have to just extend yourself and meet people who are like-minded.
Thank you so much. You have really given us lots of helpful information. And I'm going to always remember, ignorance is not a defense. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Now, what I want to do is bring back all of my guests for today. And we're going to have a little panel that I like to call Hit It and Quit It. And let me tell you why I call it that. I'm going to ask each of you the same question, and you only have 30 seconds to answer, and you cannot repeat someone else's answer. So if someone steals your answer, you better come up with another one quick. Okay. So welcome back, Nick Ron, Carole Mahoney, and of course, Chanel Christoff Davis. All right. So here's how we're going to do this, guys. We're going to start with you, Nick, because you've been on ice the longest. Then we're going to go to you, Carole, and then you, Chanel. So our very first question is, what is your favorite podcast? What is your favorite podcast?
EOS podcast. And Craig Groeschel has the leadership podcast. I'd say those are a close tie. EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's based on a book called Traction. And they do a lot of consulting with small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses across the country. So they get to hear from a lot of different groups and always a lot of wisdom there.
I like it. Carole, what's your favorite podcast?
So my favorite podcast was Brené Brown's podcast, Dare to Lead. But I think she's discontinued it. So I'm on the hunt for my next one. But my second favorite one, because that one's not always available, is Jill on Money. Is really focused on women and issues and money around those types of things. And so that would be my second favorite other than Brené Brown.
Love it. Chanel, what is your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is Follow the Leader. I am the executive producer and host. So if you're looking for a new podcast, Carole, I think I just helped you out. Follow the Leader. We're starting our 6th season. I'm so excited about it.
Awesome. All right, next question. Carole, you're going to be first this time, then you, Chanel, and then you, Nick. All right, what is your favorite business app? Favorite business app,
I would have to say is Canva.
I'm a
because
Canva.
You can do it on your mobile phone and anywhere else.
Canva has come a long way. Canva's really, really, added a lot of features that make it really, really cool to use. All right, Chanel, what's your favorite app?
My favorite app is American Airlines. I travel a lot, so I love to be able to see where I'm going to be seated, and I want to get treated like the queen that I am. So I have to navigate. Please put me in group 1. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
I love it. Nick, what is your favorite app?
I have to say, with the app that my team uses a lot is Asana, ASANA, and it's a project management app. And you can get it on your phone and your mobile, on your desktop, anywhere. And it keeps everyone, without sending 100 emails, you can track tasks and activities and work as a team on projects. And it's just been extremely easy to use, and it's cheap too, which is always good.
Yeah, love it. All right, next question, you guys. This one, Chanel, you're first, then you, Nick, and then you, Carole. What is your favorite old school marketing tip? Old school marketing tip.
My favorite old school marketing tip is giver's gain. I was taught very early after college, graduating from college and taking on the role of business development for my firm, that you should focus when you network on how you are going to impact the person you're networking with. What can you give? Lead with that instead of always thinking about how they're going to help you.
I love it. That is perfect advice. All right, Nick, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Well, if anything you're marketing, you have to clearly communicate the benefits. You have to tell what's in it for me. That's what the consumer's thinking. How's this going to benefit my life? And so, just like Carole was talking about, don't focus on you, how it's going to help your company grow. What's in it for the consumer?
Exactly. And Carole, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Stop waiting for your cat to bark. So what I mean by that, stop waiting for your cat to bark, is that as we in marketing, we ring the bell and we think that everyone's going to come running like Pavlov's dogs, but buyers act more like cats. And so stop waiting for your cats to bark.
Got it. All right. Last question. This time, Nick, you are first, then you, Carole, and then you, Chanel. What is the best business book that you've ever read?
That's tough. I've read a lot of great ones. I think it's a tie. Good to Great by Jim Collins, just a classic, and Traction by Gino Wickham. It's just a Bible for anyone who's running a small or medium-sized business.
I'm a big fan of Traction, and certainly Jim Collins' Good to Great is a classic. Carole, what's your favorite business book?
This is a tough choice, but I'm going to say The Science of Selling by David Hoffeld. And I've actually quoted him in my book because he distilled over 400 studies on how buyers make decisions today and the psychology behind all of that.
Love it. Chanel, what is the best business book you've ever read?
I love The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And anyone who asks me to mentor them, that's required reading before I meet them.
I love it. I love it. You know, my favorite book is actually Disrupt You by Jay Samit. And I love that book because he says, in order to disrupt the world, you got to start by disrupting yourself. Listen, thank you guys so much for being guests on my show today. Thank you to Nick Ron from Home Buyers of America, Carole Mahoney. Be sure to order her brand new book, Buyer First. And finally, thank you to Chanel Christoff Davis. If you're interested in getting help with your sales taxes, head over to ddhtax.com. And thank all of you for joining me on this episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. If you are an author, speaker, coach, or consultant, I want you to come to Philadelphia September 21 through the 23rd for my Brand in Demand live conference. I'm going to be teaching everything you need to know to attract your ideal customers to chase you. You don't want to miss it. Go to my website, smallbizladyuniversity.com/brand in demand live. All of the details will be coming out soon, so get on my waiting list so you don't miss any of the details. You know, I always love producing this podcast because my mission for Small Biz Chat is to end small business failure. I will leave you with this. You never lose in business. Either you win or you learn. God bless everybody.